So for district training this month, we're going to talk a lot about ladders. We're going to put together this really short video for you guys to kind of see what we're expecting over district training. Then it's up to the officers to kind of lead the different needs for each station. So we're going to talk about two-person deployment of both the extension and roof ladder. We're going to talk about one-person deployment of the 24. We're going to talk about one-person throws of the 14 and 24. Then we're going to talk about two-person throws of 24 and 14. So hang tight, we get through this together. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that I kind of preface this by saying that every truck is a little bit different. Obviously, this is new 73, so 73's ladder compartment may be set up different than 62. The 62 has them up on the roof, or even different than 121 or any other truck. So as we go through this, you're going to have to adapt these kind of procedures or these tactics to fit your apparatus and your personal style. The one thing I want to make sure as we go through this, I want to make sure that we remain safe, that we do this efficiently, and that you use as much manpower as you believe you need. Even though we're going to show you the one-person throw, if that doesn't work for you, make sure you get help. One of the big things I want to mention before we start any of this is a couple of things. First of all, always make sure you're wearing appropriate PPE. That should be an obvious thing, but the other thing I want to talk about is the placement of these two ladders before you shoulder them. So when we're talking about taking off the roof ladder and the extension ladder at the same time, we have to be very, very cognizant about how these are going to come off. So if we pull these off and we reach through on this side to lead this off, the roof ladder's on the outside. This is probably the least stable piece of equipment, least stable way to have it, because as this comes onto the shoulder, this is naturally going to try to slip out. So if we come to the other side of the ladder, grab in here, now the less stable part is closer to the body. We have more weight, more grip on this 24-foot ladder as we pull it against ourselves to make sure it remains stable and doesn't slip off. Alright, your truck should already be set up to where the butt of the ladder is towards the rear of the truck. If it's not, try to flip your ladder around and see if you can make that happen. It just makes it a lot easier when you're doing this. So your first guy is going to come up here. He's grab the 14 and 24 together. Lead them off the truck like this. Try to line up the rungs. Get them off as pretty much as far as you can get them before they start to tilt. Come back to the second or third space, whichever is most comfortable for you. Your second guy is going to come up. Stick your arm through the ladder and grab onto the 24-foot, and we're going to slide off. Now what's important is the guy behind you is going to have to communicate when he has enough ladder. It goes onto the shoulder, he ends up here gripping the 24, pulling that 14 into your body so it's not trailing off. I really still have an extra hand I could use. So if I need to carry my saw, my pike pole, or anything else, we're good to go. So we briefly showed you how to do a two-person carry with both a 14 and 24-foot ladder. Now the question is why? Because I didn't start with that, right? Well, this is the standard expectation here at Western. We got away from it for a while, and we're coming back to it. Anytime that you're told that you're going to have to ladder a roof, anytime that you need a 14-foot ladder, you really should bring a 24 with you. Anytime you need a 24, you should bring a 14 with you. So this is the standard for Western. When you're told to bring ladders, you bring both, not one or the other. God forbid you need to go get somebody out of a second floor window, you grab the 14 and you're a foot short. You'd rather be long than short. And in the same respect, if you're going to go do or ladder a roof for a chimney, fire, or ventilation, you just pull the 24 and now you need the 14, you got to send somebody else back. You need to pull them both together. So as we move on from this, Dave's going to show you how to throw a 24 by yourself. If you're by yourself and you just need to go do VES or something like that.
So we're going to talk about the high shoulder carry of a one-person ladder. Might be utilizing this opportunity for if you're in VEIS. Anytime you might need an emergency ladder to get it out there and you've only got one person. Maybe your officer's doing their 360, you're on a two-man truck. You may need to deploy this by yourself. So the big thing we need to talk about here is where we're going to locate ourselves. Typically on a single man throw on a 24-foot extension ladder, we would like to be on the bed side. It's going to offer you a lot more stability, get that bed rail on your shoulder, but we've also checked it out, looked at it and said we'll be okay if we do it from this side. That may be the situation depending on how it's set up on your truck. Now I could indeed come over here on the bed side, but I'm right-handed, so I'm very weak in this direction. Okay, I could improve upon that. But that's something for down the road. So I'm going to have to come in on my right shoulder here, and I'm going to get myself into it. When we're setting these up for deployment, biggest thing we want to do, the idea with this is that we are trying to do this as a one-man deployment. So this carry has to be set up for that deployment down the road. So the big thing we have to do is find your center point, and you want to be right at your center point or just ahead of it. You actually want to get a little bit of that load behind you, because when we deploy, we're going to sling that up, and we want to get a majority of that load already working its way down. So we'll come in, shoulder up, and start working our way out of the truck. Our beds are pretty tight, a little bit difficult. We're high shoulder, just get some height on it, get into those rungs, and you've got some control. You can maneuver this around pretty good. Okay, if you're not coming off a truck, if you don't already have it in a position where you can get to a high shoulder, again, the Western theory is we're going to go ahead, get that high shoulder in a safe manner, either deploying off the truck or like you're going to see here. Okay, so we can still get that high shoulder. Maybe somebody's pulled that ladder off the truck for some reason, you're relocating, whatever it may be. We just need to figure out how to get you into that high shoulder in a safe manner. So, if you've got a building, great, you can have something to park it up against so it doesn't slide away on you. If not, you're just going to have to employ some techniques to go ahead and keep that base nice and seated, applying that pressure. Standard issue, I'm going to flip that up on its rail, and then just pick it up. Start working your way in, maintain control of it, and then start working your way underneath it. You just walk yourself down. Once you find that midpoint, that partial midpoint, get it in, get yourself nice and low, give it a little kick, and now you're up on that high shoulder. Back in control, and you're ready to move. All right, now we're going to go in for that single man deployment. As we start to approach, reposition your hands, get a hold of this beam. Get your hands in a place where you can get some real control over it. Again, you'll notice I'm just a little ways ahead of the center point, of the balance point. It's actually trying to pull back down. You got to put a little weight into it. One of the most important parts we have to worry about here is as we go in to deploy, we've got to get this thing up, get some inertia going, and flip it and drive it in the ground. So in order to do that, that's a really important thing. Is as you're making this motion, make sure you're getting up and driving down hard, and then as you land, you're going to finish it off and go ahead and raise that ladder vertical. So let's give that a try. Okay, we're vertical now, pretty stable. Again, soft surfaces, hard surfaces, if you can plant that drive as you hike it and boost it down, that's going to grab no matter what you're dealing with. You're not going to have skid problems and things like that. Once you're in place, you'll set yourself up for a standard deployment. All right, next up we want to talk about our single 14-foot ladder deployment, mostly primarily about the raise. Now, you can carry this ladder any way you like, whether you want to get into a high shoulder, a low shoulder, whatever your situation determines. If you're coming off a truck, maybe you'll do a high shoulder. If it's already set down on the ground, you're going to do a low shoulder with it. Either way is perfectly fine. As far as deployment, you're more than welcome to deploy it just like we're showing you with the extension ladder. If you can do the hike, throw that ladder up against the wall, and you'll be good to go. Maybe you're a newer member with us, you haven't had enough wheel time, enough practice, maybe you're just not as strong as you need to be for this. You go ahead and just do a regular old flat raise or a beam raise, whatever it may be, and we're going to show you that process. Okay, just understand, flat raise is our standard raise here at Western, and we prefer that in most cases, unless of course you're dealing with some sort of bad situation, overhead obstructions, whatever it may be. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we'll come in, we're going to park the ladder. Allows us to bring it in, take it off our shoulder, and we're just going to set it up, lay it flat. Plant the ladder up against the building with the base. You're going to go ahead, utilize good body mechanics, just stand yourself up. Okay? And before you raise, go ahead and take your opportunity. Double check for your overhead obstructions, make sure you're in a good position, and then we're going to go ahead and raise our ladder. Do a beam raise like this, where you ride the beams, or hand over hand on your rungs. And you'll just go until you seat up against the building. Once you do, you're going to bring yourself out and position your ladder. Okay, if I'm on a soft surface, one of my favorites, give it a little tap with your foot, make sure it's seated well, check that climbing angle, make sure you're in a good position. All right, now we're going to talk about a beam raise on these single 14-foot straight ladders. Okay, perfect example right here. We're talking about we've got tight, confined spaces. Can't actually do a flat raise because we'd be out of position. Okay, perhaps you've got some overhead obstructions, tree limbs that are really, really close to the building, and you need to get in that point, and you don't want to be trying to fight with those. Okay, so we're going to talk about setting this, doing a beam raise on it. In this instance, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go in from the shoulder. Okay, we're just going to go in. Again, park that. We're not going to use the building. We're just going to utilize our weight and our strength in order to do this. Now, we're at a high shoulder now. If you had came in on a low shoulder, same difference. You can park it and just pull yourself out and start transitioning into your raise, okay? Big things here. Get that parked on the ground. Now, this is going to be the part bakes your noodle a little bit, okay? As we are pushing up, the important facts of this are we are going to continue with the opposite hand to pull down, keeping that base parked in, down, and even applying a little inward pressure to that, okay? That is how you keep this from skidding away, sliding away on you. It's applying that downward pressure while also raising, okay? And just transition yourself as you go. Still applying that pressure. Now we're set. And you can do either a walk or a slide and set your ladder. Finish off, seat it, check your climbing angle, and you're good to go.
So we're going to review the flat raise, which is the standard for Western in the 24 and on the 14. You can do this either from a single person that's transitioning to a two-person flat raise, or you can do this with a team of two. This is important because it really takes the load off the person who's trying to raise the ladder. Now, not to say you can't do it on your own, but anytime we have additional assistance, anytime we can make things a little bit more safe, anytime we can prevent injury, we're going to try to do that. So it's pretty simple. Dave's down here. He's actually going to raise it. I'm just going to put my foot on it. He's going to go ahead and lift it up a little bit. Easiest thing for me is to allow him to lift it just a hair bit. Then I'm going to grab on and I'm going to yank back as he starts to lift. I'm going to act as a counterweight. And up it goes. That's the simplest and easiest way to do a two-person raise. Even though the flat raise is the standard for Western, every once in a while we get into a tight spot where we just don't have enough room to lay that ladder down. Maybe there's trees in the way, maybe there's not enough room in between buildings. There could be a dozen reasons why we're not able to do a flat raise. Beam raise is the second best choice that we actually have. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting the ladder up on its rail. And then I, as the person who's going to help raise, I'm just going to put the tip of my foot right down here on the foot on the ladder, right on the heel of the ladder. Dave's going to come in. He's going to get this in here just like he showed you how to high shoulder. He's just going to lift up, slide it right up his shoulder, or do a hand over hand. I'm going to bring back pressure on it, one foot, and I'm just going to lean back with it and help bring it up. After that, we come into a perfect position where we can raise the ladder straight up. Of course, we look for overhead obstructions way before we even started this. So again, flat raise is the standard for Western. This is a secondary way that you can actually raise the ladder in case you're in a tight spot. We are briefly going to talk about climbing angle because at the end of the day, I know what the books say. I know what people tell you when you're taught in Fire 1 and 2 or basic classes. They want you to do it the proper way, like Dave's going to show you. They want you to put your feet up against the bottom of it. They want you to touch the rung, and they want you to get that 70 degrees. And if you can do that, if you can make that work, if you have time for that, that is awesome, because that by far is the safest way of doing it. However, the thing is, at the end of the day, the 70-degree angle is almost nearly impossible to achieve. Unless you're going to sit here and try to do some trigonometry or geometry in your head, try to figure out if this angle is perfect, hardly is it ever going to be really perfect. So here's what it comes down to. When we're in a situation where we have to throw a ladder, especially if we're talking about saving a life or getting somebody out of a window or doing VEIS, which is supposed to be a really rapid operation, get the ladder up against the wall, get the ladder under the sill, place it where you need to put it, and as long as it's at a safe angle. So Dave can actually push this ladder up at almost 80 degrees, and with proper heeling techniques, which we'll talk about, this is still a safe climbing angle. We can make this work. Is this ideal? Absolutely not. But if we come up short with the 24, getting to that second floor, and we can get this angle to go in there and do VEIS or get somebody out, while we're waiting on another ladder to get set up correctly or get at a better angle, this is what we're gonna do. We can also take this ladder and we can sling it out almost 40 degrees, and with proper heeling techniques, we can still climb this ladder safely. Now we're still on the concrete here, but we could probably drag it out another foot and a half. This is gonna happen if you're gonna have low angle windows on apartment complexes that may be at 4 or 5 feet, something you can't get into without a ladder, but you're not gonna get 70 degrees on that unless by some chance you have a 6-foot ladder. So at the end of the day, what we want is a safe climbing angle that can accomplish the job that we're looking to do. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to work, and you have to have proper heeling in place. So let's talk about heeling a ladder. At Western, we have 2 different ways that are both acceptable in ways of heeling the ladder. The first traditional way is for the firefighter to be behind a ladder, holding on to the rails with his hands. Now, obviously, he doesn't want to keep his hands on the rungs because somebody can step on them. Positioned where he has this nice body weight and he's pulling a little bit of back pressure on the ladder to hold it in place. This is extremely acceptable because he has pressure on this. I could sit here and kick this ladder and he can keep it from moving. Works perfect. The only downside to this position is, especially if we're going to do some type of roof ventilation or we're doing ventilation out of a window, he is in a position where something could fall on him. And we wouldn't want to purposely put ourselves in that spot, but if we have an unstable ground, we had to build this up, or we might be on gravel or something that doesn't work, this is probably the safer way because he can put a lot of back pressure on this ladder and hold it in place and keep it more stable. The second way, and has become more of the, I won't say standard, but more the forefront of the fire services to actually heal from the front, is you can do this in a lot of different positions. The upside is putting both feet up here, you put back pressure on the ladder, you're in a good spot, but you may be in the way of your firefighter who's trying to climb or get tools up. So you can actually position yourself to one side, hold back with 1 foot, 1 arm, hold in place like this. This is just as effective as heeling from the back. The only downside to this is you may be in the way of somebody who's trying to ascend a ladder. The second positive with this is not only your firefighter not being here anymore, but now you have another set of eyes who's able to watch what's going on up here, who's able to keep an eye on what's going on around him, maintain that situational awareness that a firefighter who's standing back here and not able to look up isn't able to do. Again, both are acceptable means of heeling a ladder. Do what's best for the situation. Both of these are just tools in the toolbox. All right, so let's briefly talk about rung placement or ladder placement when different operations. So there's really 3 that you have to worry about. You have to talk about working off of a roof, you have to talk about victim or VEIS, and you have to talk about spraying water in through a window or a roof line. So here's what it comes down to. If you're going to try to get a victim out of a window, it needs to be placed underneath the sill. There's 2 reasons for this. First of all, it makes it a lot easier to get a victim out if the ladder's below the sill. You're not trying to fight getting inside of the rung or over the top of them. And in addition to that, if you have a firefighter who has to do a bailout, having it in this position is the most functional. So as you can see, as we talked about a little while ago, climbing angle is always a little bit different. So if you look at this window, it's not quite at the 2-story mark. So our 24-foot ladder is actually out at about 50-ish degrees. This is still an acceptable climbing angle. And in all actuality, for me, if I'm gonna bring a victim out or if I gotta do a bailout, this is even better. This is more of a slide instead of being real steep. The other thought about positioning a ladder is, what if I have to work off of it? What if I have to spray water into the building? What if I'm going to do ventilation? If you're going to work off the ladder to either spray water into the building or do ventilation, you need to either be above the window itself if you're going to spray water, or off to one side or the other if you're going to do any type of ventilation. All right, so the last ladder position we're going to talk about is about accessing a roof line. So if you got to do ventilation, access a chimney, or any of those other things, this is the way that it's going to be positioned. Now ideally, when we raise this ladder, we want it to have 5 rungs above the roof line. This one currently has 4, and I'm doing that as an illustration purpose. Having 5 rungs gives us better egress and access and an escape route if we have that available to us. It just gives us more leverage to get on and off the ladder, which is great. And that's what we want to do. We want to try to get those 5 rungs. I mean, that's pretty much the standard for NFPA, IFSA, and all those folks. But that's in a perfect world, and our world isn't always perfect. Especially in our response area, we have odd roof lines with walkout basements, 1.5-story homes, apartment buildings that are built at odd angles. All of those are there. So you're not always going to get 5 rungs. So here's what I'm telling you. If you get 7, that's awesome. If you get 3, that's fine too. Try to get that 5. If you're not able to do that, then, I mean, we'll just have to work with it best we possibly can. So today we talked a lot about ladder use, deployment, how to do single person, 2-person raises, looking for overhead obstructions. We covered a lot of stuff. But here's the thing, you can't learn anything by watching this video. Get out and practice. Until next time, if you have any questions, contact me or Dave here in the training division. Email us, call us, text us, whatever you need to do. Stay safe.